Hello, album enjoyers, and welcome to the all-new Enjoy an Album podcast live from the Monkey Barrel Studios.
Monkey Barrel Studios.
We have moved over to YouTube, so thank you to the Enjoy an Album Ultras who have been with us since episode 1.
I was worried about this. I like the name I like the name Enjoy an Album Ultras. Are there racist connotations to the term ultras?
No, Ultras is like a footballing hooligan term. So like there's...
So yes.
Well, not necessarily, but you know, we know that they're not that, so that's okay. I think it's fine. The Enjoy an Album Ultras.
So we bit like how the Kiss had the Kiss Army, and there's two S's in Kiss, so there was the SS Army essentially.
Yeah,
with the same lightning bolt S's.
I think that's a sort of reference we should be going for. You love Kiss.
I do love Kiss, but I don't like.
I love to kiss. So
like
there we go.
SS.
Let's kiss.
So kiss me.
We are in a studio. We're excited. We've got video now. So very important things for YouTube are, if you like the podcast, to give us a like,
Smash the like button,
and give us a comment. We're taking suggestions on albums. We're not going to use any of the suggestions.
No, we will, maybe.
But you can suggest them for sure. And also, any discussion about the album, I think the comments will be a good place for fans to interact and discuss about stuff to do with the episode or stuff we chat about. So please do that. We're really excited to be moving over to YouTube, and I think this is going to be a fucking very cool next step for the pod.
Thank you very much to Monkey Barrel for having us in the studios.
Yes, Monkey Barrel, the best comedy club in Edinburgh. Edinburgh's Old Town.
This guy does not want to get booked for Red Rock, let me tell you that much. Anyway, also what I think this week we are sponsored, our first ever sponsors.
We have a short-term sponsorship deal with...
What is it short-term for?
Well, we'll find out. With Manscaped. There you are. We're a proper podcast with an actual advertiser.
If you aren't sponsored by Manscaped, you're legally not a podcast.
We the best in below the belt grooming. So you've probably heard of Manscaped from other podcasts, but if you haven't, basically, lads, this is all your stuff you need to keep it downstairs all trim and tidy. Listen, I'm a married guy, okay? I'm married like 6 years or something. I've got to be honest. After 6 years of marriage, sometimes you do occasionally let things go a little bit untidy down south. You know, Chris, you've been with your partner a long time. I'm going to guess a similar situation.
Please don't speculate about my life and relationship.
The state of your pubic hair.
No, that's fine because they were a mess. And then last week, before the lovely people at Manscaped sent out their the ball toners and the ball deodorants and the little trimmers and stuff, which has been great. I was just having a go with a pair of scissors last week, and honestly,
did you hurt yourself?
Cut my cock.
You cut it?
Yeah, I got a little scab on my cock.
I have nipped it before with other razors and stuff. Just little nicks, and it's fucking painful.
You don't get that with this.
And especially, like, obviously when you're trimming, you want it to look good, and then little blood spots or whatever. That's the opposite. Okay, you got the lawnmower. All right, this is your numero uno for keeping it downstairs. You know what's so good about it? It's got a little torch.
Don't turn it on.
It's got a little torch, so when you're actually...
That is good.
It flashes a light on it, so you can, and also no nicks, no cuts. I felt completely safe. Did it in the shower. It's waterproof. So like genuinely, when you see people advertise this, you're like, I wonder if they're just saying this, and they always say, "Oh, we used it. You can see, I've got it. I've used it. I'm giving it Liam seal of approval, lads." 100%. I've thought before when I've watched.
Also, women can use it as well,
and also women, if you've got boyfriends or husbands. And you know, maybe you would like them to be a bit more tidy downstairs.
What about just using it on their own pubes?
Well, they could use that as well.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying. I mean, it is. I can't speak for using it on a fanny personally because I haven't done that. I can speak for using it on my cock and balls because I did, and it was great. Hey,
I want to confirm Liam's balls look amazing.
The best they've ever been. Okay,
the best they've ever been.
It's like a mirror down there. There's a reflective ball. There better be a mirror ball. You're damn right. There is. There is, Alex. If you use the code album20, you get 20% off. You can get this. You can get just a lawnmower, or you can get the weed whacker nose hair trimmer.
Yeah, I haven't used that yet, but I do actually. It looks like a spider's living in my nose, and its legs are hanging out. So I'm going to start using that.
Yep, and you've got also, if you're feeling extra fruity, you've got like the gels and stuff. You've got the. Let's have a look.
It's like QVC.
There you go. You've got the crop preserver, the anti-chafing ball deodorant. So, you know, when I'm on like holiday or something, we're doing lots of...
You need to save some for next week, man. You talk about-
We're going to talk about this every single week, okay? Get on it. Album 20. Get some Manscaped in your life. Christmas is coming up. Your dad needs a present. Your brothers need a present. Get on the Manscaped. Album 20. We're very pleased to be launching this partnership
We're pleased to be partnered up with Manscaped.
Manscaped. You seem like you're hating life. I'm loving it, okay? That's
I'm
because
loving life.
you've not shaved your balls yet.
Not
This
yet.
time next week, you're going to be telling us about how clean and spotless your balls are with a big old smile on your face and with no chafing on your balls.
So that's album 20 in
Yes.
celebration of the Libertines' 20th anniversary.
That's right. This week we're covering Up the Bracket by the Libertines. It's the first one in the studio. It's a great episode. There's so much to get into with Pete Doherty, Carl Barat, their fractious relationship. This album being kind of the launch pad for the British indie scene of the noughties. Loads of fun stuff to talk about. So thank you to Monkey Barrel Studios for having us. Thank you, Chris, for coming all the way from Glasgow to do the record. That's the extra effort that Chris is putting in now for the pod.
Liam bought me a coffee and a Greg, so it's fine.
And thank you, dear listener, for moving over here to YouTube and for liking, subscribing, telling your friends, and sharing the clips. Very important. We don't have a Patreon or anything like that.
Not yet. We will have one soon.
All we want is for you to share the clips and to shave your balls because, quite frankly, they are disgusting.
I don't listen. Women, listen to this. There's women out there, man.
Hey, women.
Remember we had this live show in here? There's women there?
Yeah, shave your balls. Enjoy the episode, and we'll catch you later. You're listening to Enjoy an Album, the podcast where two comedians listen to some of the greatest albums of all time. Here is Apple Music's introduction to Up the Bracket by the Libertines. As the Strokes and White Stripes were importing stateside garage rock grit to the UK in 2002, Up the Bracket channeled raucous British raconteurs like the Kinks and the Jam to mobilise a new generation of mouthy wasters. From the tetchy title track to the tipsy boys in the band, the Libertines are the pub stool prophets who want to confront you one moment and put you in a loving headlock the next, all while charming you into buying their next drink. So we've gone off-piste because usually it's a Rolling Stones supplied blurb.
Mm-hmm.
The Rolling Stone magazine did not deem Up the Bracket good enough to be in the top 500 albums of all time.
One of the myriad of issues that I've had with the list and the reason why we are divorcing the list.
We are separating from the list. And sometimes when you divorce someone, when you marry someone, it means something.
Make a deal with God.
So we've gone to Apple Music.
No, we're not officially. We're not 100%.
We're sponsored by Apple Music.
We're not sponsored by Apple Music. We're sponsored by
Steve Jobs.
Doesn't matter who we're sponsored by just now, but you probably think, because we're not on Rolling Stone list anymore, we're going to get rid of List-o-mania, the feature that you don't like.
We're going to go straight into List-o-mania. And okay.
So we're not getting rid of List-o-mania.
Okay.
Because I've rejigged List-o-mania. I've taken criticisms on board. Mm-hmm. I've ignored some of them.
Too long, boring, unnecessary, useless feature, waste of everybody's time.
List-o-mania used to be, what other albums on the 500 greatest albums of all time list are the same year as this? Now it's what other lists are this album on?
Great.
Yeah. So Pitchfork called this number 138 in the 200 best albums of the noughties. Uncut Magazine said it was number 44 best albums of the noughties. NME said it was the number 10 best British albums ever and number 70 best albums ever worldwide. Rolling Stone, although they deigned to include it on the top 500 greatest albums of all time in 2020, they did call it number 61 best debut albums of all time and number 44 greatest albums of the noughties.
So number 44 greatest albums of the noughties, but not in the top 500 albums of all time of Rolling Stone. That's low on Pitchfork as well. 168 best of the noughties.
138 best of the noughties.
That is low.
It's in America. They didn't really break America.
Yeah, because everything went to shit before then, which we'll get to. What did you think of the blurb? What did you think of the Libertines are the pub stall prophets who want to confront you one moment and put you in a loving headlock the next? Would you like to be Putting a Love in Headlock by Pete Doherty.
It's not really my style of being drunk. Like, there's a lot of YouTube comments for Libertines interviews where it's like, oh, I just love to be in a pub with Pete Doherty, and he's like, grab me by the hand, like kissing my head and stuff, and I'm just like, nah, I don't think I'd like that. I think he's too. I never thought he was as gangly as he is. He's a pretty tall guy. I feel like he could bruise me like a peach.
Oh, I don't know, but especially with like in his deep heroin chic stages, like I think a strong wind would have snapped him. So I think you'd. Yeah, I don't think headlock. Carl Barat, I think you're getting a good headlock out of him.
You think so?
Yeah, he's just got a bit more meat on him.
I don't know, man. I've always seen Carl. The thing about Carl is I just think he needs to blow his nose, man.
He does have that kind of deep. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to live over here. And that YouTube documentary, bad YouTube documentary, the return of the feature, what's it called? There Are No Innocent Bystanders, the Libertines.
Yeah, would you say it's bad?
It wasn't good.
But it's not, I mean, when you've spoken about bad YouTube documentaries in the past, it's like people have done Microsoft Sam to go, the Libertines were a band from London in the early 2000s. Whereas this is like a properly produced like story. It's about the bands sort of getting back together after...
In 2014.
Yeah.
2011.
Yeah, and doing their first gigs back. And
yeah, it was pretty bad, man. Sometimes it's just Carol Barat going up to flats and showed that she go, yeah, we used to live in there, yeah. Look at that. That's the stairs going up to my house, isn't it?
Blow your nose, man.
Blow your fucking... I know he had like that thing where he smashed his face into the sink and like rendered himself noseless and blind for a while. Not blind, deaf, the opposite.
Yeah. Anyway, what did you know about the Libertines prior to this week?
My big sister, 6 years older, that's her name. She was a big Libertines head. That kind of early noughties.
This is like a common theme where like most of your cool music came from your older sister.
Or my guitar teacher, yeah. All the cool music came from my big sister. All like King Crimson and stuff came from my guitar teacher.
Yep.
Yes. But yeah, she in that kind of post-Britpop, pre-landfill stage of indie.
We're talking Coldplay.
No.
Travis. That was, post-Britpop, pre-indie.
No, I'm talking about this music came along to kill that.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She was, my big sister wasn't listening to fucking Travis, bro.
No, I know that.
All right.
I'm saying that there was the in-between stage between Britpop. At the moment, like the British guitar music was like a barren, like it was Coldplay and it was Travis and it was Manic Street Preachers.
It was fruitful, but it was horrific.
And then this came along and people like your sister were like, fuck Coldplay.
Yeah.
It's time to get fucking down and dirty with these drug heads.
The Strokes, Libertines, Franz Ferdinand going into Dick Ribs. And then I think Kaiser Chiefs are definitely
the rough end of that particularly shitty stick.
Yeah. Love Kaiser Chiefs.
They've got a lot to answer for, the Libertines, I think. They were the birth point of the indie landfill.
Well, there's a song on this record called, The Boy Looked at Johnny. And the chorus in it is... It's
like early Kasabian, isn't it?
Well, it's like fucking...
Yeah.
You know, they've got a lot to answer for. But I think it's a wee bit like blaming Nirvana for Nickelback. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Doesn't mean Nirvana's bad just because so many people copied them and made shit music on their template.
Yeah, and also that's the I guess the most negative parts of this album are like juxtaposed by all the great positive bits of this album, which bore out loads of other beautiful. I mean, the Arctic Monkeys probably had a lot of Libertines in them early days.
Yeah. So I heard, 100%. I was thinking this because there's that line on Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino by the Arctic Monkeys where he goes, I just wanted to be one of the Strokes. Now look at the mess you made me make, which is like a great Arctic Monkeys line, but it's like a perfect Libertines line because they literally got signed because they were looking for a British version of the Strokes. And then the mess they made is so much bigger than the mess the Arctic Alex Turner's like, I'm sad in my mansion in LA.
Whereas, Pete Doherty is like, my arteries no longer work.
Yeah, I'm, living in France. That's sad.
So your sister listened to them. Were you into them?
Well, I just heard I loved them because she was listening to them and she was very cool. I got a Trilby A lot of times I say that in high school in S1 I wore a fedora to school. It's actually not true. Big difference between a trilby and a
Were you
fedora.
allowed to wear like fedoras to school?
Who's stopped me, man?
The narc? The dean? The dean?
No, I got a skinny school tie. My dad modified my school tie to make it skinny to match my skinny trousers. I had braces.
Fuck's sake,
and a
how
fedora,
old were you?
an emo fringe with like a blonde streak through it. I was like 13.
Wow.
Trilby in school.
Modified school tie. That wouldn't have gone down in my school. You weren't allowed to do shit like that.
Well, nobody noticed. Sometimes teacher would go, "Why is your tie so thin?" And I go, "Oh, my dad sewed it up." And they'd go, "It's actually pretty cool." Well, my RMPS teacher, Miss Panaretto, described my. I went to
Italian?
Greek. I believe.
Panaretto.
Greek.
Okay.
She had. I was wearing this kind of blazer to school that was like pinstriped. This was during my kind of indie sleaze phase of being 13, and Mrs. Panaretto described me as suave.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was very much copying my big sister.
Yeah, all the teachers thought you were cool. And from what I know about high school, that goes down really well with other students. Wow, Mrs. Barker thinks you dress snazzy.
Yeah. I was very snazzy back in those days. So I loved that stuff, but it was really my sister was into it, and I was kind of like, I've got an iPod Shuffle, which did put on it. My sister was like, fuck off, find your own taste in music.
Yeah. But then, hang on, if we're talking about the timings, you'd have been about 10 when Up the Bracket came out, I think.
Yeah, but then he was famous in like 2004.
Yep.
So I was like 11. Yeah, 11, 12.
Because this came out when I was about 13 and it passed me by. I was still listening to Linkin Park at that point. And then it was when the second album came out and then all the media stuff went fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And that was when I started listening to other music. So it was their second album that I sort of listened to more than this.
Well, that's when it starts off with "Can't stop me now, you can't stop me now."
Yeah. And it's got Music When the Lights Go Out and other What Became of the Likely Lads. And it was like, for me, I mean, growing up in Dagenham, like I remember feeling like gutted that I had missed like this album.
Yeah.
Because this is like pre-MySpace internet. So like they were active, they had their own forums on their website that they would post on.
It's called the Albion, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they would do like the gigs in their house, which fans would just go to.
Yeah.
And it was like this revolutionary thing when I was like 16, because I was like, oh my God, the bands I listen to, they're in Camden.
You can go and give them heroin and they'll hang out with you.
I can go to the pubs in Camden where I know they drink. They talk about drinking in the Good Mixer and the Dublin Castle and the Holy Arms. And I can go there and you might see them.
Did you go?
Yeah. Me and my friend Pat went to Camden when we were like 17. So like it's a couple of years after even the second album. But Camden was just still off the back of this and their second album. Mm-hmm. Camden was still like a sort of scenester place. And we would go drink in the Holy Arms and the Constitution. And you would like, if people weren't celebrities around you, which they sometimes were, everyone looked like they were. And you thought, oh, wow, maybe they're in a band.
A lot of pointy shoes and scarves.
People were tripping over each other's pointy shoes and scarves like fucking nobody's business. The Good Mixer was a pub. It was a cool pub, but it was like fucking, it was tiny and it was fucking disgusting. And we just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. The Holy Arms is like the famous, there was like a really like trendy, and it had this big outdoor area. And we'd go sit there and you just always end up chatting to people. And for us, like being near this was like, whoa, I can't believe it. You know, like hadn't seen anything like that before.
The closest thing to that is the time I saw the Horrors in Pizza Hut in Glasgow having
an ice cream factory.
Yeah, did I tell you about this?
I think you've told me that before.
But did you hear the new information I've had? Put this up on the internet. I seen the Horrors having a Pizza Hut in Glasgow, and someone said, they were doing a signing that day, an in-store in the HMV, and the guy who was the manager of the HMV squared up to them and tried to kick fuck out of them because the lead singer, my posh guy, had like a glass bottle, didn't know it was glass, threw it off. I don't know if you remember the HMV in Glasgow that was, down. Sort of
Begbie style in the train spotting, threw it off a balcony.
Threw it off a balcony and it smashed. And the guy that managed the HMV was an absolute head case. So he squared up to them and tried to kick fuck out of them. They were like, no, I'm sorry, it's just an act. I thought it was plastic. So now I realise that the Pizza Hut was to cheer them up after having their first experience.
If there's one way to cheer up goths, it's the lunchtime Pizza Hut buffet.
It's personal deep dish.
But no, we would see, like, you would go to these bars and you would see like Amy Winehouse or Russell Brand or Noel Fielding, and for me, that was just like a formative part of my, you know, I was like, I'm not just into indie music, I'm part of the indie scene, you know.
Even though you didn't play any music, like
No, of course not.
instruments and stuff.
But no, not did anyone. There was like 3 musicians, and the rest were other people doing exactly what we did, eventually ruining Camden by making it become this like tourist hotspot. And you see that in that documentary. You see Carl Barat talking about Brick Lane in that same way of like, he's talking about gentrification. He's like, we made this cool with the nights we used to run, and now it's just full of fucking posh media.
But he gentrified it.
Well, I mean, that's how gentrification works.
Yeah.
Is that the artists start there
Yeah.
because it's cheap to run there, and it becomes cool, and then the fucking Brewdog guys come in, and they take over the building, and they call it fucking Rock AF, and then they have axe throwing in the fucking back in a podcast studio, and no offense to podcast studios.
Podcast studios are fucking class, man. I think they're cool.
So yeah, so I would the Libertines' second album I was into. This one I'd heard, you know, I'd listened to it. I haven't listened to it hundreds of times. I was familiar with it. Libertines, I've never seen them live. Would like to. Safe to say, was kind of into them, but it was a little bit early to me. I was more into the resulting bands off the back of these, your block parties and your stuff like that.
Yeah,
your two-door cinema clubs eventually.
Two-door cinema club. Jesus Christ.
Well, when I was 18, you know, university, indie disco kind of thing.
Octopussy.
Yeah.
Did you have Octopussy where you were?
No.
The club night?
No. We had, what was it called? Opium on a Thursday night in Romford was the indie night. And it was all the same people. It was like the same 20 people into indie music would go there every week. And that was it.
Yeah. That's so cool, man. I was kind of looking forward to this week because one of my favourite songs when I was that age by the Libertines was What a Waster.
What a waster. What a fucking waster.
You pissed it all up the wall.
Produced by Bernard Butler of Suede.
Was it?
Absolutely love. I was big into Suede as well. That was one of the bands I was into. So then I didn't really know. I mean, you could make sense. I didn't know about the Suede Libertines connection, but that was cool to learn about this week.
Yeah.
Pete Doherty was really into Suede. Carl Barat didn't know them.
Yeah.
There's a cool
Turns
story.
out he didn't know a lot of stuff.
There's a cool story where like Pete Doherty is like introduced Carl Barat to the Smiths, which seems mental for a guitar player from England in the year 2000. They said, when we get together, like their first rehearsal, they wanted to play This Charming Man.
Yeah.
And Carl Barat said, I'd never heard of it.
So he went away and learned the guitar part to This Charmless Man by Blur.
What the fuck, man?
What a fucking idiot. Blow your nose. I really like the bit in What a Waster where he's like, what a divvy, what a fucking div, talking like a moron, walking like a smith, I was laying in bed, paying my rent, he was knocking on the door for something that she left her brother, meanwhile from under the cover she says, save me from tomorrow, man, save me from tomorrow, oh no, not me. That bit where it's like...
I like it when you say I like that bit and then sing a whole song. You like the song?
I love the song.
Not on the album.
No, when it got re-released in 2003, they included that as a non-album single in the track list, and I wish they would have done that for the recent 20th anniversary remaster, but they did not.
It's weird. These one of those bands that some of their best songs aren't on other albums.
Yeah, but it's not like they had like the Smiths did that, but then they had Louder Than Bombs, the singles collection, but they didn't have enough singles to. They only lasted like a couple of years, and they were on heroin for a lot of it, so they're not the most prolific band.
Don't Look Back Into the Sun is also not on either
Don't
album.
look back into the sun.
That was a big song for me when I was younger.
Don't Look Back into the Sun, and
that's on my running playlist. Would you believe?
Are you always running away from the sun?
You don't want to run facing the sun. It hurts your eyes.
Hit by a car as well, probably. You're blinded.
Absolutely. But no, it's the BPM on that is pretty good for running. Always liked the Libertines. Loved Camden. Feel a deep affiliation with Pete Doherty because it was him, Russell Brand, all these guys. When I was like 16, I like really looked up to all these guys, especially the sort of cool like rock guys who were like unafraid to speak about like the poetry and the books that they loved and stuff like that, and were quite obviously just shagging loads of girls.
Is that what you wanted to do?
As a 15-year-old?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. That was like, wow, I couldn't believe that people lived like that. You know,
Yeah.
they were. I mean, it didn't work for me,
No, me neither.
but I was into it. You know,
The idea is great.
and then obviously, you know, I over the next sort of like 10, 15 years, got stuck into my various vices. As
Did you consider yourself a libertine when you were doing all this? Did you think there was some kind of higher, acting out against society thing when you were
100%, 100%. Yeah, all addicts think that.
Oh yeah.
When you are like in deep addiction, you're just like, well, I am. This is how life should be, really. You're the idiots.
Yeah, got to work every day.
You do, and the people that you walk past a guy on the street drinking Frosty Jacks, he's thinking that about you.
Yeah.
Like, you fucking normie. What are you doing?
I
Wasting
also
your
think
life.
that is somebody who has a fake non-job.
Yeah, but I mean, they look at us and they're
Yeah.
like, we're fucking normies.
I'm an addict.
You're addicted to Iron Brew.
Iron Brew, Pringles, and laughter.
Are you a big Pringles head? Or was that just a funny thing to say?
No, it's such a crushing addiction that
It hurts.
I'm
to
kind
speak
of like
about.
you, Balco, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
sorry if that's offensive.
It is massively to compare the two.
But I basically teetotal with my Pringles because
Because it's too
I
bad.
can just suck up a full tube.
You know, these new mics are good for making noises. Sorry if those were extra disgusting to you. Oh, we've got Ian is giggling away, and I think he's trying to cover his laughter. But please, we'd love to hear it.
Bit of laughter in the background. Dry suck.
And what flavour is your particular poison?
Sort of in.
Salt and vin.
Mm.
You know what?
Cutting.
I've got to tell you, I think Pringles absolute garbage crisps. Honestly,
What?
I just think they're dreadful. I think they're. It's the only crisps I could eat a few of and go, that's me. I don't need any more of them.
Have you not heard the tagline?
Once you pop, you can't stop.
Yeah.
I pop and then I stop.
Immediately.
And
stop.
I am literally like an addict.
Mm-hmm.
Pringles are basically the only thing that I can do that with because I find them so foul.
What flavour are you sucking up?
I've tried all because Lauren is a big Pringles head. She's the same as you. Sour cream and onion. It's her big bad
They
ones.
smell.
They all smell.
Did I tell you about when I nearly had my first kiss, but the girl had been eating Doritos, and I just couldn't. I was like looking at her eyes, like this is gonna be my first kiss ever.
Yeah.
And then I just smelt the Doritos, and I was like,
What flavour? The tangy cheese Doritos.
yeah, like proper.
Yeah,
Just
they're
do you know the ones where the dust's flying off them, all over the fingers and stuff. She's running her fingers through her hair. I'm like, Jesus.
It's almost like a sort of Libertines lyric.
They never brought up the Doritos.
The Doritos dust out of her mouth, ruining the first kiss.
It's nothing like the Libertines. It's like fucking heroin dust. Ruining first kiss.
It's a metaphor.
Oh,
Okay, right. Let's get into who are these guys. Let's do some deep digging.
secret part show. Secret part show. Do it fast and it feels like that show. I got no money. You got that, bro. Secret part show.
So we're going to do two main members. I mean, the other two I want to do a special shout out to because I feel like they've been a bit fucked over by the story of the band. No one ever really talks about the
Well,
bassist
it's like
and
the Smiths as
drummer.
well. It's like who gives a fuck about Joyce and Rourke?
I get it. I think they are incredibly patient, the bassists and the drummers. They've put up with a lot of shit. And these two guys are fucking insane egomaniacs.
The drummer is class.
He's an amazing drummer.
Yeah.
Underappreciated drummer, I think.
So good.
Very fucking cool dude. He drummed with the New York Dolls after the Libertines.
You hear about
when
the thing Morrissey did?
Go ahead.
Well, Morrissey loves the New York Dolls. It's one of his big influences. Like, he used to write into the NME saying, why don't you write about the New York Dolls more?
That's such a Morrissey thing to do.
Yeah. That's his favourite band.
Right.
And when he went to see them, the Libertines drummer was playing drums for them, and he introduced himself to all of them, shook their hands, and wouldn't speak to the drummer
Why?
because he's black.
No.
Well, he is.
I mean, yes, he is. I'm not disputing that. But do you think that's the reason? I know obviously Morris has gone a bit like crazy right wing, but do you think he wouldn't shake his hand because he's a black guy? That seems insane.
That's one way of interpreting it. I'm not saying that's exactly why. Otherwise, I get sued by Morrissey.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I think that's why. And then the drummer
I
said
know what you
that-
mean. Look, if the room stinks, someone's farted. I get
Yeah.
you. Yeah, and then he is stank. So
And the drummer said to him, "Oh, where'd you get your nice ring?" And he went, "Mexico." That's all he said to him.
well, I think that's fine.
One word answer.
Well, it's a bit rude, sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know if
You
it's
don't think I
enough.
should call him a racist because
I don't think he'll stand up in court.
no.
I don't
He's
know.
not
The man
saying
wearing the Mexican ring is racist. I think there's some contradictory notions there.
Listen, I don't want to get any more to say with Mexico, but he's great. The bass player, he has the sharpest cheekbones of any man I've ever seen in my life.
A very well dressed, good looking guy as well.
So boring though.
Yeah.
Have you seen the bit in Spinal Tap where they're talking to the bass player?
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, Nigel's like he's like fire, and the other guy's like ice. So I'm like lukewarm water."
Mm-hmm.
That's the bass player for the Libertines as well.
And again, he's a good bassist.
Class dubby bass lines.
Very,
yes.
very. It's like they basically pulled in two sesh musicians. They did briefly have a 70-year-old jazz drummer.
Yeah.
And there's footage of them playing the Dublin Castle.
He
which is
died
pretty
this
cool.
year.
Did he really?
Yeah.
R.I.P. Pouring out to a real one. The OG jazz drummer for the Libertines.
Rest in power.
Rest in power. Yes. But we're going to do some deep background.
Before we got into that, sorry, but Johnny Borrell was the bass player
Yeah.
from Razorlight.
Razorlight. Now, if we're talking about indie landfill,
Yeah.
Razorlight are the crown princes of sort of that era.
I know a girl with the golden touch.
I actually do like that song though.
She's got enough, she's got too much.
But yeah,
I was listening to that record this week.
that was your very your paint by numbers mid noughties indie band. And in fact, the fact that he was like briefly affiliated with the Libertines lends them a little bit more kudos.
Huge. That's how he got signed, I think.
Yeah, that makes him seem a bit more legitimate than I thought.
Yes. Johnny Borrell. He was huge. Oh. Watching in America.
That's a bad song.
When she's not around, she says, "Oh."
That Golden Touch song is directly like this was written for the Strokes, isn't it?
Don't blame him, man. It's just when he was saying he was the greatest songwriter of all time, and that Bob Dylan was nothing to him. You were like, you've taken that too far.
Johnny Borrell said that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he only wore white for a year. 1 year of his life, much in the same way that Black Sabbath took acid every day for a year. Johnny Borrell wore white every day, white denim.
Wow.
So that's people's issue with him.
Yeah, I think. Come on. I mean, there's a reason that he's not around anymore. I haven't
He's
seen.
around. He killed himself.
Yeah, but but they're not. You're seeing a lot of the like resurgence of like indie bands on like festival lineups and stuff. And I don't know if Razorlight have. No one's going to see
A few
Razorlight.
years ago, he came back. He made a comeback and saw a Vice, and then a Vice can be cruel, but Vice covered the comeback.
Yeah.
And it was like a 300 capacity club, and only like 90 people showed up
Really?
for Razorlight.
Wow.
Golden Touch, America.
That's bad. That we probably play bigger crowds than that most weekends.
Yeah. most weekends.
Yeah, I mean, not every weekend, but
Sometimes.
that's so we're more popular than Razorlight by that metric.
I don't like to compare myself to Razorlight.
I do.
Right, but we're doing Secret Paw Show on.
Pete Doherty first. So let's.
How are you
First,
saying Pete Doherty, by the way?
so I'm saying Doherty.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going the hard CK.
Doherty.
Pete Doherty
Mm-hmm.
is I disagree with Doherty. It's an Irish name. My dad would say Pete Doherty,
Because
maybe.
your dad pulls you up about the Costellos.
Yeah, Castello.
Costello, it's not fucking Costello.
Elvis Castello. And he would be Pete Doherty. Let me see. Liam, did you listen to that Pete Doherty? No, he would say Doherty, I think. Doherty. But the H is very pronounced. Doherty.
Doherty.
But Doherty, it used to wind me up. People say Pete Doherty.
That's how I said it for about 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably wrong. Pete Doherty.
No, it's wrong, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's an interview with him on NME, and he's, it's Pete Doherty, and the Puta Madres, his new band, and the guy's like, so how are you saying Doherty? And how are you saying that? Puta Madras? And Pete Doherty's like, it's not fucking cutting, man.
So Pete Doherty was basically, he was an army brat. His dad was a major in the Royal Signals, and his mum a lance corporal in the nursing corps. He
What did you think that's not?
well, I saw him interviewed about this. He was very very particular about it.
He was particular about it?
Well, he wanted to be very clear that his dad was like, yes, he's a major, but growing up, He was a squaddy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's just worked like he was wanted to be very clear. He went, I didn't go to a fee-paying school.
Mm-hmm.
My parents were working class. They've worked their way up into the army, and he's a working major. He's not like a major who sits behind a desk. He's a
Right.
major who goes out and is like on the front line, so to speak. Is what he said, and that he considered himself to have a working class upbringing. Just he was just lived on barracks basically.
You get that a lot with people who grow up in military families, and then when they move out, they're just fucking absolute head cases because they've grew up in this kind of regimented background in the barracks. And
Definitely a rebellion thing going
yeah.
on. But then he went to a pretty normal sixth form college
Mm-hmm.
where he was like star student, all A stars in his A levels. Won a poetry competition
Clever boy.
that meant he got to tour Russia when he
Yeah.
was 16, which is pretty fucking crazy. Like, I didn't know that was an option.
Didn't know you could do that.
Yeah,
Mm.
but I wasn't writing poetry anyway. But maybe I would have.
If you knew you could have went to Russia based on it.
Would I have wanted to go to Russia in 2004?
Yes. 100% yes.
He after sixth form he moved to London to his grand's house because he just felt like he needed to be in London, and got a job filling graves at Willesden Cemetery.
Filling graves.
Yeah.
The guy for Los Campesinos works in a graveyard as well.
So I think we can say no posho. If you've got a job, if you've got a job filling graves, regardless of whether or not your parents are in the army.
He did say that he didn't do a lot of grave digging, and he mostly kind of just smoked hash next to graves.
If anything, I think it makes you more. Do you know what I mean?
There's a lot of that kind of, not the libertines, but the libertine lifestyle. You know, you end up with a lot of people pretending they're posh, so there's other people like them, but everybody else in the room is also posh.
Yeah, it's that meme of that guy standing in the corner of the party.
That's exactly what I'm thinking about, yeah.
Yeah, no one here knows I'm posh, but they're all saying it about each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was the opposite at university. I was pretending I was posh. I was wearing a tweed jacket.
I couldn't pretend because I didn't know what a sweet potato was.
What?
I remember in first year, someone showed me, do you want some sweet potato? And I was like, what is that?
Yeah.
And everyone made fun of me for not knowing what a sweet potato was.
Heartbreaking.
The clue is in the title of what a sweet potato is, to be fair.
But it's not.
It is. What do you mean? It's a potato that's sweet. There's really probably no other way to interpret it.
It must be a different genus.
Yeah, you know what? I didn't bring up the genus in those first year potato debates. You got me there.
Got genus
Carl
envy.
Carl Barat. Carl Barat. What are you saying?
Barat.
Carl Barat.
Persian.
His dad
Get out.
worked in an armaments factory.
Wow. They really are the children of warmongers.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, or children of the tools of warmongers.
Uh-huh.
You know, his dad didn't own the armaments factory. It's not like a Keir Starmer thing. Keir Starmer always says, "My dad was a tool maker," and it's like,
My dad was a toolmaker.
and it's like, no, your dad had a factory where tools were made. You fucking arsehole.
You heard Frankie's joke about that? No. I don't know if I can burn other people's
I
material.
don't know if you can do it. I don't know if in the first video podcast we can do Frankie Ball material.
No, I think he done it on TV. He was like, Keir Starmer says his dad was a toolmaker. I was like, of course he is. He made you.
But that's so funny because that's Keir Starmer's joke about Boris Johnson. He did that at his conference speech.
What?
In Keir Starmer's conference speech, he did a joke where he went, "Oh, my father was a toolmaker, but in many ways, so was Boris Johnson's father."
Stanley.
Fucking got him. He got him. At that
Yeah.
point, I went, this guy's going to be Prime Minister. Carl Barat's dad works in an armaments factory. His mum and dad divorced young, and he sort
Yeah,
of
if you're
lived
a
between
factory
them.
worker, that's not.
His mum and dad divorced, and he lived between them. His mum lived in a commune, massive hippie, and was a member of the Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament. So,
Yeah.
talk about problems in the family. Your dad's making the weapons. Your mum's protesting against them. No wonder he's got his rebellious streak.
You're going to start smoking crack with that upbringing, man.
You don't know where you stand.
You don't know where you stand. Can't stand me now.
But a pretty normal high school and college, you know, like they're, I think, just pretty, you know, standard.
I thought
English
Carol
upbringing.
Barat was going to be like, oh, he's like he's in the Prussian
He's
royal
like the
family or
Earl of
something.
Winchester's
Yeah.
fucking second son or something.
But he's not.
No. I thought Pete Doherty as well would be super, you know, there's something about that sort of young, like naughty, like, you know, musicians now you get.
Well, they were trying to copy the Strokes, and the Strokes were the daughters of record producers and musicians and models, and you know they're like the ultra secret posh show that we've not even covered yet.
I think it shows a lot about the changing scene of London. Like, to be a musician and a heroin addict in central London these days, you'd need to be earning 5 figures, or you'd need to have a large trust fund. But to be a working class heroin addict, I mean, that's
You
the
need
real,
to commute in for like
that's
a
it. You
commuter
have to
town.
come in from Rayleigh once a
do
month
heroin.
to do smack, and then go back out.
Well, funnily enough, I mean they're not even in centre; they're in Margate now. You know, so
They are. Margate is the new sort of hip town, but then that's gentrified as well, you know.
probably what happens when a rock star moves to your town and starts a record studio / boutique hotel. You're gonna have a different clientele.
Barat and Doherty met through Doherty's sister, who was at university with Barat. Barat was studying drama, wanted to be an actor, and met Pete Doherty via the sister, and they just got on immediately. Shared loving of songwriting and music, despite. I mean, I think if you claim to have a love of songwriting but you've never heard of the Smiths, I think there's a problem.
It was a different time.
I guess pre-internet.
Your dad's too busy building bombs. Your mum's too busy smashing bombs. It's like, who's going to tell you that Johnny Marr's out there?
It's 1997. I suppose, you know, where you're getting your music news from and stuff. I get it. You know, maybe discovering the Smiths at that point
was a different story from the 80s or the 90s.
Yeah, I mean, they'd only, you know, it'd only been 10 years really since the Smiths had made music. So I do find it a bit
was
weird.
still out.
Yeah, that's strange, isn't it? But then the access to music is different. It depends where you get stuff from. Okay, you know what? It's okay.
He should have known, especially considering him and Pete are essentially the Morrissey, Johnny Marr of the 90s.
Yeah, definitely. And considering once something Pete said about Carl was immediately how like obviously talented he was at guitar.
Mm-hmm.
That he was like, Pete Doherty said he was like never that good at guitar, but you know he had the sort of writing element down. He wanted to be a poet, whereas Carl Barat was like a natural musician, and he said that he knew people growing up who played guitar that were doing like all right, but watching Carl play, he was like, holy shit, this is like someone who's like really truly gifted. So to be that musically gifted and also that musically naive, I suppose, to not know bands like Suede were big in the 90s.
Yeah.
That's mental to have never heard of Suede.
Very odd.
Yeah, get your head out of your ass and blow your
hand
nose.
in your head out your ass and blow
Get your hand out of your nose, Carl Barat. So they got together, started writing. They had a few different, you know, did a jazz drummer, a few different musicians.
A 70-year-old jazz drummer, yeah.
They named their band after the unpublished novel by Marquis de Sade called Lust of the Libertines.
You're a big sad head.
I'm a big sad head,
At
for
the
sure.
sad head.
Yeah, man. My prescriptions of citalopram will back that up. No, I'm kidding. I'm 10 years off the anti-Ds.
Fluoxetine.
But no, I've never read Marquis de Sade, but it's like, it's pretty, I think it's a good name for them because it sort of illustrates, it's kind of what I was saying earlier about they're unafraid to sort of attach themselves to like literature. Do you
Well,
know
it's
what I mean?
just kind of interesting that they were so blunt because they named the band the Libertines and they were Libertines, whereas you look at somebody like Nirvana. Nirvana's like achieving peace, and they didn't. They shot themselves in the head.
Well, I mean, that's how you achieve ultimate peace.
Shooting yourself in the head with a shotgun.
With a piece, yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah.
You achieve ultimate transcendence by having your fiance murder you and make it look like an accident.
That's not even what happened. And or you have Nirvana, and they were like the opposite of what they were, and then you got like fucking. Trying to think of another example. Like the Smiths, they were like, that's the most boring normal name you can have, but he was like a crazy, crazy gay lover. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think that this is defining? We're doing a lot of Smith slander here. The racist.
I love the Smiths.
Yeah. I think Pete Doherty does as well, and that is evident throughout.
To know
this
someone
record.
is to love them, but it's kind of interesting that they were just. You think they would have called themselves the Eunuchs or something? That's kind of like the opposite of what they were, but they were just like, nah, we just love heroin, and now we're doing it, and also writing songs about it.
Well, I mean, Carl wasn't a big heroin head, you know. He said he tried it a few times to try and get closer to Pete. Their relationship, I do find really fascinating.
A likely excuse. I was doing heroin to be a good friend, okay?
It's like when I introduced you to drinking coffee, you know.
Is that how it worked?
Yeah, remember we were in Aberdeen, and I took you to a posh coffee place.
My first drip pour.
And
I wasn't doing that just to be close to you.
Yes, you were.
No.
Yes, you were. And here we are. It worked. We have a podcast together. You've achieved your goal to take over my life.
Wait, you took me for a coffee so I could take over your life?
No, you engineered it so that I took you for a coffee.
That's
The long game.
Machiavellian
Oh,
nonsense.
fucking yeah. Tell me about it.
No, he was more of a kind of... Johnny Borrell recently was asked about Landfill Indie, and he said that one of the early Libertine songs was a great example of Landfill Indie and how it influenced actual Landfill Indie. And he was saying, if the Libertines had gotten into speed instead of coke, they would have been the best band of all time.
That's interesting. So yeah, they I mean, basically, they started playing songs and doing gigs together, and they got a sort of following prior to this album coming out. They released What a Waster, and they managed to get signed to Rough Trade Records. And then I think that's when the relationship between Carl and Pete started to fracture. I think it's an interesting relationship because they're both so similar, realistically.
I don't know. I would say that Pete Doherty was the SpongeBob.
So
And Carl Barat is the Squidward.
when we talk about Dionysian archetypes, I think there's a lot more between them usually than these two. These two, like, yes, there is, but I feel like they're so similar still that actually it's more like the id and the super ego.
I would say that Pete Doherty was the SpongeBob.
Yeah.
And Carol Barat was the Patrick Starfish.
Now, yeah, yes, that's it. That's it.
Who's the Mr. Krabs? Johnny Borrell.
Mick Jones.
Jones was
Mick Jones, the from the Clash, who produced the album.
Who was the Plankton?
I mean, we're going to do all of the SpongeBob characters.
Who was the name of the manager they had? Like Pibby Schwartz or something? Pibby Schbubte? What was her name?
Do
you know her name?
No.
Right.
But it's the sort of thing that you should definitely know before you bring it up, rather than just improvising noises. Pibby Schbupta. That's her name, Pibby Schbupta.
Her name was like Pobby Schmoz or something. And she was like, I would say she was like what's the name of the squirrel from SpongeBob?
She's got a normal human name, I think, even though she's a squirrel.
She's from Texas. She's an astronaut.
Yeah. If you've never seen SpongeBob, it's going to sound fucking crazy. Okay?
Check it out.
Yeah.
On the playlist, my playlist choice today, episode 1, season 1 of SpongeBob SquarePants.
That's the whole episode.
Check it out.
Imagine if I put on the playlist for a long drive, and in between fucking tracks from Kid Cudi and Miles Davis, there's an entire episode of SpongeBob.
I would love to stick the outro music of SpongeBob on the playlist. That one's like boom, ding, boom, ding.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. So Carl and Pete's relationship has been a focus of much interest over the years. The way they talk about each other I find fascinating. They obviously love each other, but there's like a fierce competitive streak. They bring out, I think, both the best and worst of each other. They've both said that, before or since, they've never found someone whose songwriting is in such sync. But that they're obviously they are very jealous of each other, find each other very hard to work with. But ultimately, when their relationship works, it is amazing. And when it doesn't, it's obviously unbearable. I mean, they had multiple actual fistfights. There's loads of stories. It's a funny story in that documentary where Pete was drinking mineral water, which Carl deemed poncy. So kicked the bottle of mineral water out of his face. And then Pete phoned the police. So it's that kind of stupid.
And then when Pete Doherty broke into his flat and then had him arrested.
Yeah, so I mean that happened. So let's get the timeline right. The first time that the Libertines played without Carl was when they used to organise without Carl. Was when Pete via the forums organised a gig at their studio on the same day as Carl's birthday.
That's fucked up.
And Carl was like, well, I've got plans. I'm going to do karaoke in Soho.
Yeah.
And so they did the gig anyway. So that was the first time they didn't play together. And that was sort of the beginning of the sort of big problems. Then Pete obviously got heavy into his heroin and his crack and was becoming more and more of a liability. They were fighting all the time. And then when the Libertines went to play in Japan without Pete...
Insane.
Pete went and broke into Carl's flat and stole an enemy award and Carl's guitar.
Yeah.
Pete's then girlfriend at the time was like, "You're being fucking crazy, bro." Phoned the police. Pete got 6 months in prison, first time of many going to prison, and I think served 2. And then when he came out, him and Carl reunited
and recorded the second album.
They had to have bouncers in the studio with them to stop them fighting with each other.
It is very Spinal Tap. It's the total rock star cliche of like a guitarist and singer who love each other but are useless without each other.
Yep.
Plus the heroin, plus the Jack Daniels, plus the leather jackets, plus the scarves.
Yep. Plus, but Mick Jones of the Clash in the room as well. Like there was a funny point in that documentary where he's saying, we were in that studio and it was like the second day and they just started fucking throwing fists at each other. They're just punching each other and I really thought, I don't know if this is going to work. And I'm like, they're kicking fuck out of each other. I don't know if there's some good circumstances to record an album.
Yeah.
But the album is actually fucking class, so they did make it work.
It's definitely weaker than this one, though. The second one.
Do you think so?
What became of the likely lads?
I don't know. The second album has, I think, more radio-friendly, memorable indie dance floor fillers than this one.
This is a total punk record, this one. Yeah, like... People don't really talk about it that way.
Yeah, this is much... I mean, that intro doesn't mention the Clash at all, but you can hear a big Clash influencer here. It says, the Kinks and the Jam. And there are songs like... I mean, the Jam, definitely.
You can tell that blurb was written by an American guy because it doesn't bring up Chaz and Dave.
Chaz... Oh, well, I think I've told my Pete Doherty, Chaz and Dave story before, have I?
Huh?
So, Pete Doherty was due to play a pub in Romford when I was 19. No, not even 19. Would have been 17, I think. And this was when he was going in and out of rehab, and it was like a big deal. He was playing this small pub in Romford. It was fucking crazy. And then on the day, he ended up going to rehab or prison. Maybe he was arrested for drink driving. And so last minute replacements were Chaz and Dave. And let me tell you, if there's one thing that's going to annoy the Essex indie scene, it's turning up to a Pete Doherty gig and being presented with aging skiffle Cockney legends Chaz and Dave singing rabbit, 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 rabbit. But Pete Doherty loved Chaz and Dave.
Yeah, big influence.
Which I only found out really this week, and now you can hear more the skiffle, especially in the lyrics. Like there's a lot of old English like kind of turns of phrase and stuff.
Mind you bleeding on you too, Bob.
Yeah, and talking about spivs and stuff, and up the bracket is a phrase from Hancock's Half Hour.
Yeah,
I'll give him a right, I'll punch up the bracket.
Oh, come on then.
Which reminds me of the songs we used to sing at West Ham about knees up, Mother Brown. How's your father? All right.
Which is obviously we've talked about that before, but that is the Bo Diddley drum beat.
Yes. Oh yes, so it is. Wow, listen, I'd never expected throughout this podcast to discover that Cockneys shouting at a football game, "How's your father? All right," is directly from Bo Diddley. Enjoy an album, Ultras, who've listened to all 80 episodes, will understand everything we're talking about. If this is your first episode, you might be a bit confused. Go back and listen to the Bo Diddley episode.
Immerse yourself in the Enjoy an Album lore, please.
Please give us the respect that we give you.
Are you familiar with the story of Raymond Mearns opening for Pete Doherty?
Raymond Mearns, famous Scottish legendary comedian.
Legendary Scottish stand-up.
Baby, all right, Pete Doherty.
Huge influence on Bridges and Frankie really rates some and stuff. Like, legendary. Incredible stand-up. How many times have you seen Menzies rip a room apart?
Hundreds of times.
Freeform. I mean, he's unbelievable. But Pete Doherty is a big stand-up fan.
Yes.
Like, you hear about him going to the Frog and Bucket in Manchester when the Baby Shambles are on tour and stuff.
Yes, he's friends with Paul McCaffrey.
He's friends with Paul McCaffrey.
And Paul McCaffrey has opened for him recently. He's opened for Libertines live shows and Pete Doherty live shows.
Wow.
He's been a support act.
That's great. Well, Pete, and this was like 2010,
right,
when he was doing his solo stuff. No, it would have been 2000, in the noughties anyway. and he gets Mearnsey to open for him. And I don't want to cast any aspersions out because Paul's amazing, but I feel like the crowds have maybe got a wee bit older in the last couple of years. Whereas I think back then it was like people who wanted to live the Libertine lifestyle. Mm-hmm. So he gets Mearnsey to open for him on his UK tour, solo tour, after the breakup of the band. And Mearnsey says it was like really hard work, but he kept thinking, well, we're doing Bournemouth and we're doing Cambridge and London and all these places, Cardiff, but we're going to be doing the Barras in Glasgow. Mearnsey's going to open for Pete Doherty, and he's just getting through every gig, real struggle, but he's like, you know what, Glasgow's coming, and it's going to be class. And then they get to Glasgow, and that day Pete Doherty is arrested for pedophilia, so he never gets to home.
Pete Doherty, baby! Come
Pete,
on,
baby!
man. I was looking forward to the Barras, man.
That's just so gutting, isn't it? Being on tour with this absolute... Wow! What's happening, Pete?
Hey, Pete, can he make it? I can play the guitar.
Who needs Carl Barat? I can't use the blues those. So when you hear about Libertines, what do you think of? I think of the time Pete Doherty had a big breakfast.
Pete's Big Brekkie.
Pete's big
famous
break.
meme picture of Pete with his giant fucking breakfast, the biggest breakfast you've ever seen.
I've got the news article here.
There's a news. How big a breakfast do you have to have for it to make local news?
Libertines frontman Pete Doherty wins cafe breakfast fame.
Cafe breakfast fame. Wow, that was all he ever wanted.
Libertines frontman Pete Doherty will have his name inscribed on a wall of fame in a Margate cafe after scoffing a mega breakfast to claim it for free. He put away the feast inside 20 minutes to beat the challenge set by cafe owner Mark Ezekiel. The fry-up included 4 bacon rashers, 4 eggs, 4 sausages, a burger and chips, plus plenty of trimmings. The Can't Stand Me Now singer is well known in the Kent town, with the band are building a studio and hotel. He had his dog with him. That's why he sat outside, Mr. Ezekiel said. We said, you can't feed your dog or the challenge is void. He said, it's a £4,500 dog and I'm not giving him fried food, which really speaks to the true libertine nature of him, that, you know, his body is up for grabs, but the dog,
Absolutely.
$4,500 dog, is not going to be eating any of these. And that's basically the story. It's quite funny. But then I found this week's unhinged YouTube comment of the week.
How far into that breakfast do you think you could get?
Well, this is the issue. I love the ideas doing these big man versus food challenges, because I'm a bit picky, got my selective eating disorder. You know, there's a lot of stuff.
A made up disorder. But
Okay, wow. It's not. And I'm going to get the lead singer of Titus Andronicus, who also has selective eating disorder, to kick your head in.
Okay.
But anyway, there's a lot of people on Facebook going, this is disgraceful, eating challenges, people are starving.
Oh, fuck
Stuff like that.
off.
And this one guy, this is 4 years ago, this guy posted this on Facebook, and I found it underneath a video version of this news article. A guy called Paul Harley 4 years ago said, absolute disgrace. Who in their right mind puts chips on a breakfast? Just bulking it out on the cheap.
Wow.
I think he's bulking it out. It's 4 bacon rashers and a burger and chips.
That chimes with a famous bad Roscoe McClelland hot take that chips are just filler, is what he refers to them as.
Secret idiot.
Yeah, no, nothing secret about it. We are publicly calling you out, Roscoe. You're a big dumb fuck.
So I just love the big breakfast story. I think it just speaks to how he's kind of turned his life around, and like, you know what? He's not doing coke off Kate Moss's arse anymore. You know?
I think that was probably during a drug phase, though. He's been, I believe he's been clean since 2019. At the moment,
the year before.
He's had, was it 2018, the Big Breakfast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was. I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, he is a serial relapser. He's been in and out of institutions. He went to a rehab in Thailand. He went to the famous one in the UK. I can't remember what it's
He
called.
says he's never finished a course of it though. He always goes to Thailand or the Priory or whatever, and then he just goes. No.
Yeah, that often happens. People do a few weeks and they go, "Yeah, I'm fine. I can just go," and then they're not fine. But I mean, it sounds like, from my understanding, that he's on a good, clean run at the moment, and obviously, that's great, because the real story of Libertines is the story of the destructive nature of addiction. I mean, the reason they kept breaking up and fighting is because Pete was a massive heroin addict and crack addict, and that was disrupting the band. And Carl, I think correctly, after a while said you can rejoin the Libertines when you're clean. Because at some point, if you are just facilitating someone's continual drug use, then you kind of become part of the issue as well. So that was really probably like the biggest crux for those two fucking fighting.
I think one of the great things about this record is that it's like not one of the great things, but it really captures the high of drug addiction. Like this is them just getting high. Then the second one's kind of like, can't stand you, man. And then the third one's like, we haven't spoken 10 years. Let's do something again. Do you know what I mean? Like, but this you can feel the high on this record. It's like total, it's on and up.
And before we get into any more specifics with the record, is there other parts that we want to cover, famous jingle-wise?
With two guys reviewing tattoos, we're gonna Google image searching and we'll choose if it's tattoo woohoo or tattoo boo-hoo. We're judging the ink, yeah, that's what we do. Full sleeve of face, that's a big skull or wing. Bet you pick the design, is it a bad or just fine? A dragon or a skull, pretentious or tall, you cannot hide. And we will decide if it's tattoo woohoo or tattoo boo-hoo, yeah.
So we're now in the studio. So audio listeners, this is one of the reasons you can go maybe make the jump over to YouTube is because we're going to be able to show the tattoos in question. I think we've got 5 of them loaded up.
5?
Yeah, they're heavily tattooed boys.
That's right, yeah.
So we're going to have a look and we're going to tattoo woohoo or boohoo, either of them. Producer Ian, can we get number 1, please? There it is. Just above Pete Doherty's right nipple is the word Baby Shambles, which is the name of obviously his band Post-Libertines.
Yeah, were you a Baby Shambles head?
Not really. I was by that point. I think they had 1 or 2 songs I thought were okay, but I'd moved on to Pastures New by the time that had come out, and it was
Two-Door Cinema Club, etc.
Yeah, I was listening to cool music like $2 Cinema Club. Thanks very much.
I'm gonna give this a boo-hoo. I just don't like looking at nipples. Do you know what I mean?
What's your aversion to nips?
Well,
give us a
when
life.
I was getting a chest tattoo, I was getting I've got an anatomically correct heart tattooed on my heart.
It's a woohoo from me.
Thank you. It's a woohoo from me. But the guy was like, I'm not going to put it where your heart actually is because it would hurt if I tattooed right on your nip.
Yep.
And I can tell that he's had the same advice. He's like, no, put it right over the nipple. And the guy's like, it's going to hurt, man. Just put it a wee bit away.
What do you think of Baby Shambles as a pun?
Love it.
Do you?
Baby Sham, the drink.
No, I get it.
Yeah.
I don't need to explain to me. I described it as a pun. I know exactly what's happened.
Maybe I don't know what you thought it was.
It seems to me like one of those cool like Twitter names that someone has. You know what I mean?
Well, the guy in Los Campesinos had a good one. It was called Heart Slob.
Yeah.
It's like heartthrob, but a slob.
Yeah, you can imagine someone being called at Baby Shambles before this was a bad name. They'd being like, oh yeah, that's quite clever. But as on above your nipple, you think is that good?
Baby cakes, you just don't know.
So that song, it's funny you should bring that up, is what kept off
Can't Stand Me Now.
Kept that off number 1. What a fucking damning indictment of musical history. Can't Stand Me Now, British modern canon, kept off number 1 by Baby Cakes.
Well, share that shit with the UK garage scene.
UK garage. I think I've said before that I was in a taxi driver with Baby Cakes singer's dad once. He drove me. He was a taxi.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Forgot.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, you like your music? I was like, yeah, I do. I was working in the guitar shop at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, my son's actually a musician. He's in the band Baby Cakes.
What?
Or whatever the name of the band was.
I don't think the band is called Baby Cakes. The singer was called Baby Cakes.
Oh, it could well be, though. Would that surprise you?
I just think you're being disrespectful with the garage scene, man. But anyway, I'm going to give this a boohoo.
This is a boohoo from me. Can we see the next tat, please? Now, this is just the word libertine.
This is the classic Libertine tattoo. This was on their second album. It was Pete finding a vein / showing off his tattoo.
So that's 2 versions. That's so far 2 for 2 tattoos of your own band's name. Like, would you get an Enjoy an Album tattoo?
No.
It shows a real commitment to the project, doesn't it?
We're already like 80 episodes in, so we should really be committed, but I don't know. What if something bad happens on it? What if you die halfway through an episode or something? No offense, like that. Like
that has nearly did happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, within anything, that's even better. That's more of a.
You should never get a tattoo for someone unless they are dead.
Yeah, so they can't fuck it up. But then,
Yeah.
some people die and then stuff gets unearthed
Yeah,
after.
you find out they're a paedophile.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for us.
No.
And it says libertine rather than the Libertines, so it's the idea of that they are a libertine regardless of whether or not.
Yeah.
But he
When,
scratched it off.
When they broke up, he kind of slashed the skin off of the tattoo so as it was illegible because he wasn't a libertine anymore.
That is something. I mean, in terms of content warning, self harm, that is a bit. That's extreme, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it ties in with that other story that you mentioned earlier, where
Carl Barat.
headbutted a sink after a fight and had to get 70 stitches across his head.
Yeah, and the NME reported it as he fell.
Yeah, but that's pretty. To need 70 stitches from headbutting a sink, you don't really have to be fucking going for it.
I think he was on a lot of drugs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of coke, but still, that's. I mean, I've been on a lot of drugs. I've needed stitches.
Yeah.
Not from headbutting a sink 7 times in a row.
It's kind of the opposite of what Johnny Cash did to sinks. He was always tearing them out of walls. Whereas Carl Barat was trying to tear his face out with a sink.
Yeah,
the
yeah.
opposite of Johnny Cash.
Next tattoo.
It's
hang
going to
on.
be a woohoo for me. It's iconic.
Yeah, I think so. I think so too. A woohoo from me. And let's have the next one, please. This is the one on his neck, Pete Doherty's neck. It says Astile? Agile? What do you think it says? So it's an instant boohoo if I can't tell what it says. Astile.
That's an S?
Yeah.
I don't know what it says. I saw a guy with a neck tattoo today, but he looked so normal, this guy, and then he had a neck tattoo, and I was just like, what's going on with your life, man?
These handwriting tattoos, I think it needs to be clear what they are. And handwriting tattoo on the neck, it just looks like you're falling asleep at a party.
Someone's
written-
written on your neck.
Someone's written cock and balls on there. So that's a boohoo.
Boohoo.
Next tattoo, please. The classic.
Classic love heart with an arrow through it.
Yeah, classic sailor's tat. I think that's... Oh, you've got a love heart, haven't you?
Yeah, on my chest. But it's not a love heart.
Don't you have
it's
another? Oh, you have a rose as well.
a
Yeah.
rose.
So, yeah, I think that's fine. That's a woohoo. And I think there's one more, is there? Oh, two more. Two more.
Love the mermaid, another classic sailor tat.
Yeah, we like the sailor tats. I think they're cool. I'm going to give the mermaid a woohoo. And final
Woohoo.
one is the skull and crossbones. All the sailor tats. Now, you know what? You can overdo it with the sailor tats.
Yeah, you can.
You end up with that. There's that funny thing about the guy from Maroon 5.
Adam Levine.
Yeah, where there's that tweet where it looks like he walked into a tattoo place and said, "Give me tattoos."
Yeah, but I mean, he's got that kind of new modern tattoos all over, and like kind of Harry. Who is it? Harry Styles has that as well. A lot of tattoos like that.
Yeah, maybe.
And it's just kind of like, come on. Or like Justin Bieber has it. He has loads of tattoos that are just kind of like, come on, man.
Yeah, you've got, I think, 3 different sailor tattoos.
Having them are dotted abouts the way sailors actually did it as well. In case you lost a leg, you still had most of them.
Yeah, I think 3 though is probably just about at the limit of classic sailor
He
tattoos.
has 10 tattoos and we're not going to do half of them.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. I think that's fine. I think that's
Overall, a woohoo?
overall a woohoo for Pete Doherty's tattoos. There.
Would
yeah.
you, when bringing the death of Mark Blanco into this,
Okay.
would you give that a woohoo or a boohoo?
You mean right? I think we need to provide some context.
Okay, so I'm not saying Pete Doherty did it. I'm not saying anybody else did it, but there was a house party in 2006
Right.
where Pete Doherty was there. A guy called Burchill was there. A guy called Johnny Headlock was there, who was Pete Doherty's minder.
Yep.
And there was a guy at the party called Mark Blanco who was an actor. He was starring in a play called Accidental Death of an Anarchist.
I've read that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a guy who gets killed by the police. He gets thrown out the top floor of a police station.
Yep.
And he was going to act in that. But he couldn't act in it because he got thrown out the top of this party.
Yeah, so the story is that he was sort of having a fight argument with Pete Doherty, and someone tried to distract him by setting his hat on fire. And then there was an altercation by the balcony, and then he was pushed off or fell off.
Yeah.
The Pete Doherty and the guy who owned the flat were interviewed, and the police said not suspects. But there's
CCTV footage of stuff. Check it out. Make your own opinion. I'm gonna give it a boohoo.
the
I didn't like
the guy who owned the flat though.
Yeah.
There was someone else fell out of that same window and died.
Yeah.
I mean, fall out of a window once.
To fall out of a window once is careless.
Yeah.
No, twice as careless. Once is misfortune, twice as careless. Fuck that.
Yeah, I mean, not to be too disrespectful about, the...
No, I'm giving it a boohoo. I'm saying it's bad.
Yeah, I'm not saying... I don't think you think it's good.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, let's be somewhat gentle about the...
I'm being gentle.
Okay, well, yeah, that's a boohoo from me as well.
Boohoo from him.
Let's talk about the album.
I like this album so much more than I thought I would. It's not... in my head, I thought this is going to be just boring landfill indie with a kind of... But it's like way much more going on than that.
There's a lot. There's loads of different styles coming in, isn't there? You've got your punk, you've got your jam,
Rockabilly, that first Vertigo song's like pure.
and I think what makes them stand out and still, if you want the original and best noughties British indie band, is the lyricism and their how open they are to this. Literary references, and they talk about like the fucking the Odyssey in there, and then there's like weird historical references, the Queen of Boudicca, and some of the poetry within it.
Oh my god!
I think is what elevates it above your Johnny Borrells of the world.
Yeah, I think Time for Heroes about the riots. Did you see the stylish kids in the riot, shoveled like muck, wombles on fire? What's that line? Wombles on fire.
Yeah, that's based on during the May Day riots. There were a series of protesters who were dressed as wombles.
Really?
And he said there was like 10 or 11 of them, but he saw one of them like getting arrested or whatever, and so that's what the Wombles on Fire lyric is about.
Truncheons and shields. It's like, fuck, man.
And again, some of the songs are about is just far more interesting and original than a lot of the later landfill indie bands. Like, you've got songs.
I've had the same jeans on for 4 days now. Talk about the fucking riots, you can.
What's the song Up the Bracket is about like crime in London. It's about the Cray twins. There's much more interesting stuff going on.
How does Up the Bracket go again?
It's just like he's in another world.
It's just like he's in another world.
That song starts with that noise where they go, I hate that.
Get out of it!
I hate that. It repulses me. That comes on and it just makes me shudder in
It's
my
like a
headphones.
junky noise, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't like it. I understand that's the point, but I wish I could have this
It's a
album
great intro.
without that noise.
Get out of it!
You're at the indie disco, everyone shuts it off, everyone's like each other.
Get out of it!
You're like, oh yes. It reminds me when I stayed in Edinburgh and I was living next to Nicholson Square, and we saw one of the main guys of the Edinburgh drug scene on the way down here when we were getting a Greg's. Don't know if I didn't point him out to you because he's quite violent.
Yeah.
But he was always shouting and screaming outside my house. I was making that noise.
Yep. And you like that in an album, do you?
Reminds me of real life.
Yeah, okay. Up the Bracket is a good song, there is, you can see though, and I think this album, there are sort of two distinct roads that come from this album, and one is like your sort of more lad rock, and one is your sort of more thoughtful indie. And so the songs like the Boy Looked at Johnny is your most pub rock kind of oi band.
How does the chant go again? We were singing it earlier on, but it's like
New York's pretty.
New York's pretty in the night time. What's the chant?
Da 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 da. Yeah.
It's like it's the da da da. It's like that, and it's.
But
But there's nothing wrong with that in this record. It's just when you know where it goes, when you know where this is pointing, you go ugh. Or like Boys in the Band is kind of quite misogynistic.
That is them at their most laddie and most dislikable, I think, and it's kind of hard to separate because they were young lads in London, dating fucking models, doing loads of drugs, and being like successful rock and roll stars, and so they've written a song about that, or the girls always love the boys in the band. And
boys love the band when they get it out for the days with the boots.
and that's pretty cringe, just aged really badly. But I guess that was their lives. You know,
Very similar to, and we'll get to this in a couple of weeks when we do the System of a Down, Toxicity.
Yep.
Incredible record, just and very similar to this record, and I can't wait to compare them. But there is a little bit of misogyny, as the French say.
Have you heard Graham Coxon's live lounge version of Time for Heroes?
No,
Yeah.
I'm fucking Coxon pilled.
I know.
You didn't say this to me?
Well, I found it this morning. I've decided to bring it up now, live on the podcast. Graham Coxon covered Time for Heroes on the Live Lounge. It's on YouTube. As far as covers go, it's kind of pointless. It's basically it's just
note
for note with Graham Coxon's voice. So
he's not. I'm Coxon pilled, but he's not the best singer.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, the What a Waster isn't on here. I feel like
What a waster! What a fucking waster! You pissed it all up the wall.
Elevated.
The city's high, the city's fair. Oh my god, what a song!
You can really hear the Smiths' influence on Radio America. Particularly, that song to me sounds almost identical to Please, 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 Let Me Get What I Want, to the point where there's a particular key change in Radio America where I'm expecting every single time to hear the mandolin solo from...
Do you think that's a mandolin? Or do you think that's an electric guitar with a big effects pedal?
It's an electric guitar with a big effects pedal, but it's being made to sound like a mandolin.
You can't fool me, Johnny Man. I know you're playing a guitar.
This album does... this is one of those albums that really transports you not just to a particular time, but to a particular place. This album is London in the early noughties. So, you know, for me, it's like an exciting album to, you know, even though my sort of being in London around that time is a few years after this, really it's kind of this is from London between 2000 and 2007, 2008, 2008 being the back end of it becoming a kind of parody of itself.
I'm 12 years old. I hear Time for Heroes coming out my sister's bedroom. I beg my dad, please, buy me the trilby. Please, Dad. He's saying, well, you know, I'm worried that people might have an issue with it at your school. I'm saying, Dad, I don't care. I'll take the beatings.
And that was just the teachers.
But yeah, I did wear a trilby and I did want to be Pete Doherty. I thought he was so cute. I thought he was so cool.
You thought he was cute?
He's really lovely big eyes, like a puppy dog.
Okay, fair enough.
Still does, even though he looks a bit of a state these days, but Christ, don't we all?
I think he looks better now than when he was peak heroin.
Now?
Yeah, he looks healthier now. Then when look some of those some of the
he looks like
footage,
a dad.
Yeah,
he's like 40.
Yeah, well, he is a dad. He looks better than when he was on like fucking skagged out of his nut and weighed about 2 stone. He looks better.
This guy's sober pilled, man. This guy's fucking. It's class when people are sober. Sometimes, yes, it's great that you're sober, and other people. He doesn't look better now, man. Let me tell you something. His peak, I loved him with the breakfast face.
Yeah, okay.
When he was on the Margate Beach with his 4,500-pound dog, and he's skinny and he's eating big old breakfast. And you know what really impressed me, and I forgot to mention, not only did he beat that breakfast challenge, he also had a strawberry yazoo.
Wow.
That wasn't included in the challenge. Yeah, to wash it down.
Absolute king behaviour.
I don't know if he let the dog drink that.
One thing I do like about this album and the following album is something that I've often struggled with, and I know a lot of people like me have as well, being English, is that especially over the last 20 years, it's becoming increasingly more and more, embarrassing to be.
It's hard to be proud to be English.
Yeah, it is, especially the sort of the co-opting of the English flag by the right wing, and the cult of English tradition, the fights about Winston Churchill, and it's a big part of the culture war. And there are bands like the Libertines sort of dig into a classic England that is, with loads of stuff to be proud of, and great writers and poets and great stories and folk music, and there is a lot in the history traditionally that you can look at and not necessarily be fucking embarrassed about, which for me is something that sort of speaks out. And that is where there's we haven't spoken about the sort of mythology that pops up in this album of the Albion,
the Arcadia, the ship that sails towards the perfect England of time gone by.
Yeah, this sort of idea
fascist
that they are
imagery.
That they're on a boat.
Make England great again with your little red cap, Liam.
Being called, there's nothing as frightening as an Englishman in a baseball cap.
That says "Make America Great Again" on it,
as they said in A Time for Heroes.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's this. They spoke often about this fictional boat that they were traveling called the Albion towards a fictional land called Arcadia. What do you think of that? You think it's cool?
I think it's cringe.
I do think it's a bit cringe. You know, I thought it was okay until I heard Carl speak about it at an early NME interview, and he was asked to describe Arcadia, and he said cigarettes grow on trees, and the benches are made of denim.
That does sound class.
No, it's
cringy. Imagine just plucking a cigarette tree, lying down on a bench. It's okay. It's denim.
Why is a denim bench good?
Soft. That's the issue with benches. Do you spend a lot of time on benches?
No.
I'm bench pulled. And they're so uncomfortable. Honestly.
Yeah. Okay.
And if they were made of denim, it would be bad.
It sounds like you're aboard the good ship Albion.
I just think it's cringe to be like, I want to have the Union Jack tattooed on my forehead.
Yeah,
You
I mean,
know.
so Albion's an old name for England, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I was thinking, and they renamed the squat they were living in, where they would have these impromptu live gigs. They renamed it the Albion Rooms. And there's the Albion and Arcadia motifs throughout their records, later records, and Pete Doherty's solo stuff. So I was thinking, listen, it's our first episode in the new studio, Monkey Barrel Studios. But maybe this should be our rooms of some sort. Maybe not the Albion rooms,
The
but
Arancini rooms. Well, your place is Arancini Towers.
Arancini Towers. What about in tribute to enjoying album favorite Berry Gordy?
The cum munching sweet.
The popcorn, the buttered popcorn. The all aboard the ship, the buttered popcorn.
Let's have a think about it for next week. I don't want to have the buttercup popcorn rooms.
The popcorn towers, popcorn house. Popcorn house is good.
It sounds like we're doing a film podcast.
Oh yeah,
We're not filmos this week.
Well, yeah, no filmos this week.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. We'll think about it. We'll take suggestions in the comments, or in the YouTube comments we have now of what we can rename the temporary fictional island, which we broadcast from.
Did you enjoy an album this week, Liam? Was it nice to revisit your new Camden Heights, your Amy Winehouse glimpses over your friend's denim shoulders?
Yes, it was a grateful trip to the past. I'm very happy to see and hear that Pete Doherty is sober and doing well. They were touring. They were here during the Edinburgh Fringe, but it clashed with my show. I haven't seen them live. These are one of the bands I think I would really like to see.
I would love to see them live 20 years ago.
Of course, but you can't go back in time. You can't go back in time. But you know where you can go back in time? Buttered Popcorn Island, where time does not exist, but cum does.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the album. Great to listen to. I think it's more interesting. As much that I loved the second album for its more sort of indie like pop hits that I used to dance to on a Thursday night in Opium. This one I think is more interesting with that sort of scuzzy guitars and the post punk. And there's lots of different flavors in the album as well. There's some softer songs. There's some more rocky songs. I think it's pretty good start to finish. There's one or two, as we mentioned, more misogynistic or laboured or
it was
dated
2002. It was a different time.
It was a different time. Women didn't have rights then.
Women didn't exist.
They weren't real.
Nowadays, yes.
Yes. Thank you, woke Garatai. Tell you where they don't have rights. Buttered Popcorn Island.
No,
okay,
they do,
where
they
paradise.
And listen, we'll find out next week about what women are like, right? But
Did you enjoy an album?
I loved an album. I didn't think I would. I thought I'd be like, these idiots, this isn't indie landfill, and it's not Britpop. It's something special in between.
Yep.
It's in the great history of English punk.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed it, and
Really makes the Strokes look like a couple of rich pricks.
fuck yes.
They don't really have good lyrics.
And you know when I want to talk about being proud of Englishness, I'm proud of the Libertines.
Yeah.
I'm proud that they're a London band where I'm from.
I can't believe they're all still alive. Except the 70-year-old jazz drummer.
Who died recently.
recently?
As we'd covered. But you know where he's alive? Buttered Popcorn Island.
We're not calling it that, man.
Where he's playing jazz every day using coconuts on the beach.
Every week we add 2 songs a piece to the Enjoy an Album playlist, which you can access at enjoyaplaylist.st, updated by Mega Slippers. we add one song a piece from the record and one song a piece inspired by our chat about the record. Liam, what song are you going to put on from the record?
I think. I mean, listen, "Time for Heroes" is a genuinely really brilliant song. I think. I would like to put on "Death on the Stairs" or "Time for Heroes," but maybe we can discuss. What were you thinking?
I'm going to put the title track up the bracket because I love that.
Okay, you like it. It makes me shiver, but maybe I'll grow used to it. In that case, I will put on "Time for Heroes." I think it's mad
Sick.
not to have it on there.
Yeah.
My bonus track, I'm going full Doherty this week. Maybe you can help me decide. So there's two other Doherty songs that I love. There's Pete Doherty's solo song "For Lovers." Do you know that song? It's a piano led. He sang it with a guy called the Wolfman, who was do not laugh. Do not disrespect the Wolfman.
It's a lycanthropic jazz
I think
singer.
his name was Peter Wolf. I think, and he was a bad influence on Pete Doherty.
I can imagine you're not calling yourself the Wolfman and then you're an upstanding member of society, are you?
He was one of the people that sort of came into the circle during the heavy heroin use, and that Carl really disliked. And they made the song called "For Lovers." It's a beautiful solo song.
Stop talking about that Wolfman. Bloody nose.
And I think it got to number 2 in the charts. It goes, "This is for lovers, just for today."
That's Heroes by David Bowie.
No, it's "For Lovers" by Peter Doherty and
We
the
could
Wolfman.
be heroes just for one day.
But then there's another song that I love, which is on the second album. I remember when I was in university, I lived with a girl who was fucking Libertines pilled to the max. And she showed me a clip on YouTube of Pete Doherty, I think on the Culture Show, talking to Kirsty Allsop. And she asks him, "Can you play something for us?" And he plays "Music When the Lights Go Out," which is a real like Paul McCartney-esque, like slow, beautiful, melodic love song.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it. So I think I'm going to put on "Music When the Lights Go Out," but it's very tight. I've done what you normally do, and I've given 2 options and then went for one, but I was really torn today.
I really want to stick on What a Waste.
What,
And honestly, if I could, because it was on the 2003 re-release, if I could have What a Waster instead of Up the Bracket, would you be up for that? And then you don't have that horrible scream in your playlist?
No. Okay. No, doesn't count. Okay, but that's cool.
Well,
So
to
we've
punish you for your nonsense, I'm going to stick on Golden Touch by Razorlight.
No,
It's been added to the
before
playlist.
no, vetoed. You get 1 veto a series. We're still in series 1, and this is my first use of the veto. We're not putting Golden Touch. You're putting on What a
America
Waster
by Razorlight.
All my life living in America.
Watching in America.
Wow, that's earwormed there. That came back to me pretty quickly. That song, maybe it's better than I give it credit for.
But I pilled.
I'm heavy Johnny pilled, my friend. I'm coming. I've got Johnny's coming out of my anus.
Yeah, okay. I'll put on What a Waste.
What a waster! What a fucking waster! Some of the swearing in this album is a little bit cringe as well.
Not on What a Waster though.
No, it's okay there. It's like
To Bob
it
Cunt.
does feel punk, but there's that bit. I can't remember what song it is where it pauses and Pete Doherty goes "fuck it" like that, and it's like, yeah, I'm cool. Fuck it.
Thing is, though, he was and he is.
Yeah, he
And
was,
so
he is,
swearing.
and he will do. And swearing is cool, actually. Fuck you. There you go.
That's actually really hurtful.
Who are we listening to next week?
Next week, we are listening to Phoebe Bridgers with her album Stranger in the Alps.
Thank you so much for listening or watching the Enjoy an Album podcast live from Buttered Popcorn Island. We hope you enjoy your week. Thank you for downloading and sharing. Get us up on the Twitter and the Instagram. Video clips are coming. Please do share when they do. And we'll see you here next week for Phoebe Bridgers.
Please listen along and we can enjoy it together.